Hello everyone, this is General Hand Grenade. Welcome to my war room in Prince George, British Columbia. Well, we're getting to near the end of the turn sequence. So you've done all the other things. You've produced your units and you've done your combat movement and you've done your combat. You rolled a bunch of dice. You've done your non-combat movement. Now it's time to finish your turn off, and so we're at the last stage, the last phase of your turn. And this is called the place units and collect income phase. And there's a lot of things that you should know about this. Not too much, but I mean, there's certain things that you should know. And like you may be used to Axis and Allies, so you're thinking that you know how to do it. But there's a couple things that are different. So let's just go through it. So here, let's use America as an example here, okay? So there's a lot of stuff here. Let's say America had that much money, and there's just a ton of stuff there, and you're placing all of these on the West Coast. But how do you do that? Because you look at your factories, and you've got a major factory here. That's it. That's all you've got is that major factory there. And the capacity for that major factory is 5. So anyway, I'm going to show you how you're going to do that, okay? So let's just go through it though. So place all the units in the place units box, and I'm just using this for a place units box, but what they're talking about is this here, the place units box. Like they want you to put all your stuff here. I just like using these coasters though. I think that's cool, and plus you can keep them near you, right? Wherever you're sitting around the table or standing, then you can use those instead of going over to that. But it's the same thing. That's the place units box. Okay, so you can't place units the same turn at a factory that was just built. If a minor factory is upgraded, you can't place 5 units there until the turn that the factory begins as a major factory. If you can't place a unit for any reason, it remains on the production chart until a later turn. So this is the production chart over here, right? So like if you were planning on placing a factory, or if you were planning on placing a unit and all of a sudden now you don't have a naval base or whatever, if you can't place it, you just leave it here, and then hopefully next turn you can place it. So, and what they were talking about here, like you can upgrade your factories. Here, let me just show you down here. So here's a factory upgrade here. So what will happen is if you already have a minor factory on the board, and then we've been through this before where you've got the different stages when we went through that in the first phase, the production phase. So you had one here, you paid $5 to get a factory upgrade, and then you paid another $5 to put it on the place units chart. So if you had a minor factory on there, and okay, it's time to place your major factory and you take your minor factory off and you put the major factory on that turn you can't just place 5 units there. You can still only place 1 unit there because that at the beginning of that turn, it was a minor factory. So on the next turn, when you begin that turn with a major factory, then you can place 5 units at the end of your turn at that major factory, and that's what that's saying. Okay, weapons as well. In this game, you have the weapons and technology, right? So there's the technology chart over there. So those type of weapons, there's a few of them, right? There's advanced artillery, advanced mechanized heavy armor, jet aircraft, heavy bomber. There's advanced submarines. Anyway, those units there. So you can't place those wherever you want. Like here we have a factory here, a minor factory for the French, and the French have developed heavy armor. So they've got this piece there, they've got the ARL-44, right, that you can get at Historical Board Gaming, and you can't place it at this factory because that factory is not in your home country. And we talked about home country earlier. France's home country is this right here. Everything here that's blue that's connected to Paris, and you can include, there's an island in here somewhere, Corsica. Anyway, so you have to place this at a factory in your major country. So you could place that here if you wanted, but you could not place it down here. And that goes for all nations. Like if you buy technology weapons for the British, they have to go there. You could not put them down there in Calcutta. You have to put them up there. which kind of sucks, you know, like I know when I was playing my game there, I had a factory down here and I put a jet fighter down here. Well, that's not allowed. You have to place the jet fighter up there and then fly him down on subsequent turns, right? So anyway, that sucks, but that's the way it is. Okay, so for capital ships, they have to be placed at a shipyard, and that shipyard has to be connected to a major factory in your home country via an undamaged railway. You may not place more than 5 ships at the same shipyard. So that's one of the reasons you might not be able to place something. Like say you were planning on fixing a railway and you didn't manage to fix it. Like somebody had taken a space there and you weren't able to take it back. So now your shipyard is not connected to a factory somehow. In this case, it is but say you didn't have a factory there. You had a factory there and you had a shipyard there, so you could place ships here. If you didn't have this territory here or this territory here, the Japanese had come and taken it, and then you weren't able to take them back, then you couldn't place your ship because this is not connected to a factory. Normally it is, but I mean I'm just demonstrating to you. So that's what that means. That shipyard has to be connected. And also ships and submarines can be placed at any factory location or naval base, including shipyards, connected to a factory via an undamaged railway. Submarines may be placed at a submarine base. No more than 5 ships can be placed in this manner. So you could place 5 ships here, including capital ships, at a shipyard. You can place 5 ships here, but not capital ships. But they also have to be connected to a factory. And here's the kicker. That factory has to you're counting against that factory's production points. I was a little unclear about that, so I contacted Will Henson and he explained it to me. So you could use this factory here to connect it to this to place that. But like say if you wanted to place 5 ships here connected to this factory, then you couldn't place 5 other units here. You couldn't place infantry here. And I'm going to show you that. I'm going to demonstrate that in a minute. You have to I dropped my stick. You have to, the ships that you place at a shipyard or a naval base count against that factory's production capacity, okay? So, next thing, militia. Militia do not require a factory. The number of militia you place in a zone is equal to the zone's point value with a minimum of 1 militia per zone, even if the point value is 0. A captured land zone is always restricted to 1 militia per turn. So let's find a place here on the map, like this here. These ones here have a number 1 on them. You could only place 1 militia there. You could place 1 militia there. You could place 1 militia there, even though it doesn't have a point value. The least you're allowed to place is 1 militia. You could place 2 militia here, even though there's a factory here. Like you could place something at the factory, and you could place 2 militia here because that's worth 2. But if it were worth more than that, well, let's say the British just come down and take it out now. Then if you've just taken it over, then the capacity is 1. It doesn't go it doesn't matter what it's worth. If you just conquered it this turn, you can only place 1 there at a place that you didn't own at the beginning of your turn. So that's how you place militia. I didn't find one. Like here's a 5 here, right here. You could place 5 militia right there, unless you just captured it. Like if the Germans captured that zone, they could only place 1 militia there, right? Okay, and then we have something called motorized upgrade. Let's just go to the other side of the board there, where we've got some other units. Yeah, this is what happens when you make videos and you don't clean up after yourself. Okay, so we have motorized infantry here, right? That's it's a truck basically. Now you can replace an infantry with a motorized infantry on this stage. So it's called a motorized upgrade. It says regular infantry And that's just regular infantry. It's not Marines. It's not airborne. It's nothing like that. It's just regular infantry, like this dude here. He doesn't have a chip on him. You can replace those with motorized infantry for 1 IPP, so long as they're in the home country or in a supply path that connects to a major factory in their home country. No other type of infantry can be motorized. Upgrading takes place in this phase right now, the place units and collect income phase, prior to collecting income. So, it's got to be a major factory. It can't be a minor factory. So, like this guy, you couldn't do it because look, there's no railway here, right? So you couldn't do him. You could do him though, because if you could trace this all the way back, there's a factory there, right? So you could take this guy off and put this on, and that would cost you 1 IPP. Now this is Russia's home country, so you could do that, right? But if, say, the Russians had conquered up to here, and you had an infantry up here, if the Russians had conquered up to here, as long as you have an unbroken path to a major factory, you could take that dude off there and put this thing on. If you wanted to, you don't have to. And it's got to be a regular dude, remember, it can't just be anybody, right? So that's pretty cool. Now you wouldn't necessarily want to do that because you're getting them close to the front lines, and you know, like one of these things is more expensive cannon fodder than the other things. Plus, you got to think of, am I going to transport these things on ships once they get wherever they're going, right? Because if they are going to be transported on ships, then you need infantry, like regular infantry, or you know, some type of infantry to put on your ship, because you can't put 2 mechanized things or armor class things on there. You need an infantry class thing on every ship, right? Well, I mean, you could put just 1 tank on, but what I'm saying is if you want to fill a ship to its capacity of 2, one of them has to be infantry, right? So you just have to think about that. Like, am I going to eventually, am I steaming towards the coast and then getting on a ship? Because if I am, then I might not want to upgrade this guy. Otherwise, you know, like those things are pretty handy, aren't they? And facilities, including factories, upgrades, naval and air bases may be placed when completed. Place these facilities where they started using an under construction marker. If you cannot place a facility, it remains on the production chart until you're capable. Let me just grab one of those markers here. So this is what those markers are. Now you could use something else, I suppose, if you didn't own any of these. And these are hard to get. Like half the time they're in stock and half the time they aren't. That's why I've only got 5 of them. I've been trying to get more, but every time I go to make an order, then all of a sudden they're out of stock, right? Like they're in stock, they're in stock, they're in stock. Then I go to make an order and they're out of stock. So wherever you have that marker, let's say you were planning on putting a factory in this one here, that's where you would place it. Or you could have an air base that you were planning on building. It takes a while on the production chart, right? Like if you were building an air base, it starts here. So you had an air base here, and once it got to here, then it has to go where this air base was sitting on a marker right here, right? And the same with factories, the same with naval bases and shipyards. You have to start with one of these things on the board when you put it on the production chart. So like a naval base, you would, as soon as you put a naval base on the production chart, you had to put one of these on the map where you're planning on putting it. And like when we talked in the first stage there, the production phase, about damaging things, they could be damaged while they're on the map, right? So that's why you need those things there. And also you didn't just all of a sudden build it in a place. Like you started building it here and it took you a while, and so now you know where that factory, now everybody knows where that factory is going to go. And then Lend-Lease, this is where you would do Lend-Lease. So let's just take a look at putting these units on the board before we get into the Lend-Lease thing. So like I said, America bought all this stuff here. And so that they want to start getting on transports and going across the water, right? So we're going to put all this stuff in San Francisco. We've got 5 ground units and that we bought because we already had a ground unit, so we know we could fill up 3 transports with them. We've got 3 infantry class units here, and we've got artillery, we've got a tank, and we've got a motorized infantry. So we've only got 1 transport here, and we need to put 2 more on. But the thing is, we've already used up the capacity here. Like this thing, you could only put 5 things on. I mean, even though you've got a naval or a shipyard here, you still have to find the factory capacity for them. So let's find some factory capacity for them. And the other thing we need to do is we need to place our capital ships. We know that. So we're going to use this factory's capacity here on the rail line to build these things. So that's 1 and 2. We got a capacity of 3 left for this factory. The other thing is, you know what, we want these planes on, right? And we want them fairly close to where that ship is going to be. So so let's place these planes over here. So that's 4. That's the, oh, hang on a second here. I've got gotta grab a different fighter. My magnet came off. Every once in a while that happens to me. I didn't place the magnet on properly. Okay. And that magnet came off too. Damn. There we go. Okay, so we're going to place these 2. So we placed 2 capital ships, and we placed these 2 with this factory. We could place 1 more thing. So let's place this cruiser here. Okay, so that's 5. But we still got all these ships left, right? And we can only place 2 more things at this shipyard. So we don't have any factories over here. We're done with factories over here, but we do have factories over here, right? And if you look closely there, there's all those railways there, and they're connected to those territories on the other side. So we've got this factory here we could use. So even if we were buying stuff for the eastern United States and putting it up here, we could still put things on that, use that Texas factory. So we go back over here, and we've got, we know we want to put the 2 transports here in this zone here, because that's where all our dudes are, right? All the things that we want to transport. So we're going to put the 2 transports. Okay, now we've hit the capacity of 5 as far as placing things at this shipyard, but we also have a naval base here that we can place up to 5 units on, and we've only got 3 left. So there's the other 3. So we placed 2 ships here from the Texas factory and 3 ships over here from the Texas factory. One way to think about this is that this is the production capacity, the factories. The factories are the production capacity, and the naval yards and the shipyards are the placement capacity. So you needed to produce the steel and other components of a ship in a factory. Then you needed to send it down a railway to the shipyard where it was assembled into a ship and then launched into the ocean. So just think of it that way. Okay, so that's how you would place them. And then the last thing is Lend-Lease, and we talked about Lend-Lease in the first thing. I showed you that example where they brought it down here. One of my subscribers commented on that. He said, hey, when you were bringing that guy down here, shouldn't you have stopped here because there was a naval base? And that's a good question. I should ask Will that too. But this is the part where you would Lend-Lease, like if America had bought something and they were Lend-Leasing it to Russia, for instance. You could go from naval base to naval base, and then it would have to stop as soon as it hit the home country. It has to go to another player's home country that you're aligned with, or that you were, sorry, not that you're aligned with, that you were at war with the same major power with. So hang on a second. Okay, I just dug out the rules for Lend-Lease because I don't want to make a mistake on this at the end of the video. It sucks when you have to redo a whole video when you were just about done making it. So during the production phase, nations may lend money, IPPs, or military equipment to other major or minor powers. A nation can lend lease to a nation under the following conditions. The receiving nation is at war with a major power, or a special circumstance like the Spanish Civil War allows the nation to lend lease. So it's a good thing I checked because I had it screwed up there. There's a lot of rules to this game, and sometimes they run together in your head when before they've become second nature to you. So a nation may not lend lease to itself or to aligned minors, like Britain couldn't lend lease to Anzac, for instance. Declaration. A player must announce his intention to lend lease at the start of the turn. So not on this phase, but at the start of the turn, like on the production phase, when you purchase something to give to them, or when you set aside some money to give to them, you have to say, this is going to Russia, whatever. And you couldn't just lend lease one of the units that you just purchased, that was already on the board. You have to purchase a unit specifically to lend lease to somebody else, right? And then you declare that this unit that I'm buying is for the Russians or for whoever, right? It could be up to half of the nation or the receiving nation's current income in IPPs, not counting bonus income, rounding up fractions. Now, I had this wrong before. What I had was it was up to half of the nation that was giving the money. Like if it was America here, I said it could be half of America's money. That's wrong. If you're giving it to the Russians, it could be up to half of what Russia's income is, not what the giver's nation is. Or it could be one military unit. So, I mean, that unit could cost more than half of what they're making, right? So that's the other thing you could do. Such a unit must be produced at a factory in the home country, specifically for the purpose of lending. You may not lend lease units already on the board, like I just said. Okay, then we've got the supply path. During the collect income and place units phase, the sending nation will attempt to deliver the lend lease to the receiving nation. Lend lease must move along a supply path from a major factory in the sending nation's home country to a land zone in the receiving player's home country. Lend lease units have no combat value during delivery. So when you're doing that, also another thing that's worth mentioning, like we've just seen that America placed its capacity on here, right? What you're purchasing for the purpose of lend leasing, I don't believe counts against that factory's production. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think that it doesn't say anything about where it does that. But at the same time, even if it did, like you've seen all those factories that the Americans had, you could have produced it on there, put it on the railway, moved it to a naval base, and then overland you go down an undamaged railway, and then you lend lease across sea zones. You don't need a transport ship. And if it's a naval unit, like if America was giving them a submarine, like if say they were giving the Russians this submarine here, then that submarine would go adjacent, like it wouldn't go into the land zone, it would go next to the first naval base it came to in the Russians' home country, like that. It has to follow the shortest viable route in sea zones to an undamaged naval base. So, if Japan had a bunch of subs here, you couldn't just go all the way around and then over there. Like you have to go the shortest possible route. And if that means you're going to hit a Japanese sub, then that's what it means. It's if the route passes through a sea zone that contains a submarine of a nation at war with the sending nation. So in this case, it would be the Americans, if the Japanese were at war with the Americans. The Lend-Lease is subject to convoy rating dice. And we've seen how you did the convoy rating, right? Where you had the modifiers and you rolled a dice for each side and seeing if any money was taking off. You do it exactly the same way, right? IPP losses are taken from Lend-Lease if you're giving money, and if you were giving a unit, then any damage whatsoever kills that unit. Even if the damage that you come out with when you're rolling for the convoy is only 1 and the tank is worth 6, it doesn't matter, that tank's dead. So you have to be careful with that. If you are planning on going through somebody's subs and you know that at the beginning of your turn, then you might want to think about giving money instead of giving a tank. And then blockading. A blockade prevents the delivery of Lend-Lease. Lend-Lease cannot be delivered. Players must wait till the next turn. On the next turn, it can be attempted again or delayed another turn or reassigned to arrive in the place units phase for the nation that built it. So that the tank that you bought, if you just can't get it over and you tried it again the next turn, you can't get it over because of a blockade, then the Americans would just build that tank for themselves. And then arrival, when it arrives, it is immediately added to the nation's IPPs. When military units arrive, they stop moving the moment they reach the first land zone in the home nation of the receiving nation. So, like here, like I said, if you were bringing a tank over this way, then it would stop there. But remember about blockades though, it's 3 surface ships, right? And here you clearly have more than 3 surface warships that are in this zone here. So if the Russians are at war with the Japanese, then you wouldn't be able to bring it through there. But if they were not at war with the Japanese, then those ships are not blockading them, right? And also remember that if one of these ships were on protecting convoys, like if they had one of these markers here, escort duty, then they can't blockade if they were on escort duty. Now it doesn't matter here because you got a shit ton of ships in there. But if you only had 3 of them and one of them was on escort duty, then that's not a blockade because there would only be 2 that could blockade and not 3. So that is just about everything. Now the last thing that you do is you collect your income after you've done your Lend-Lease. And so that is the income is the sum of red numbers printed on the maps from the zones in possession around the globe plus any earned bonus income. And you have to be careful about this because it's easy in this game to get screwed up with that bonus income. You know, like it's hard enough to get screwed up when you're exchanging land zones. Like you take one, like you might take 5 land zones in a turn. And so you remember to up your income for 4 of them, but not the 5th one. Or again, when they were taken away from you, you might have forgotten to take that number off. So it's always handy to check every once in a while to make sure it's correct. Like if it is correct, then the number up here would be correct, right? So like if it was the Americans, they would receive 6 IBP. Right? But you have to remember to check every once in a while just to make sure that what you're doing is correct. So let's just take a look at that for a second here. Let's take a look at the British card because that's a good illustration. So let's just take a look at this one here. So you look at the peacetime bonus income there at peace. So they start with 11, right? But you look in the blue there. It's so if an Axis power annexes Austria, Sudetenland, Slovakia, or Albania each time, the British will get 1. They will be +1. So you will take that British marker. See, it's on 11 there. And if one of those things happened, you would move it to 12. Even though it's not your turn, you got to try to remember to do that. And that's why you need to check it every once in a while because every once in a while you will forget to do something like that. Right, and there's all kinds of other things here too that are in the blue there, right? So you would run and do that, and every once in a while you might want to check. You might want to look around the board and see, is this correct? Like, do I have that many? Counting up your stuff. When you're at peace, it's a little different because the number on the board does not correspond to what you actually have. Your peacetime income is less than all the red numbers that are on the board. It's your wartime income. So the wartime income here is 24 for the British. That's the number of little red things that they have on the board. So peacetime is a little more difficult, but you should check that every once in a while. And then when you do go to war, that's another time you should check because you should check your card because your wartime income is 24, right? And you think, okay, right on, I get to go to 24, so you've just put your marker out 4 spaces. Don't stop there. because there's also wartime bonuses here that you didn't get. Like these are the ones that you were getting before, these blue ones. Now these ones are dead. Now you're getting these ones. So check these. And that was another thing I forgot to do when I went to war. I didn't even think of that because I was trying to play every single nation at once, right? So you go to war, somebody declares war on you, or you declare war on somebody. Make sure you take a look at these and see if you've got these. So the possession of the Suez Canal, 3. So you instead of being at 24, you should be at 27. Iran is neutral or possession of the Allies. That's likely as well. So that goes up too. So then you should be at 29. You shouldn't be at 24. You should be at 29 immediately. Just make sure of that. And then the possession of the Dutch territories, like all of these Dutch territories down here, right? When you go to war, and that is after the Dutch fall. Like if the Germany will probably take out the Dutch homeland, and then it's all the Dutch colonies. So there's one there, Dutch Guyana, and then there's all of these ones over here. And the British are going to get to divvy up all that money between the 3 of them, the UK, the FEC, and ANZAC. So you need to adjust your. Actually, you wouldn't adjust your income on that because that can change every turn, right? You could just say, okay, when you're counting up your money for the British, you take a look and say, okay, yeah, I'm at 29 because I'm at war and I've got these bonuses, and I haven't taken anybody and nobody's taken me, so I know I'm at the right amount. So how am I going to divvy up this stuff now? And then you would divvy it up, and you could do it differently every turn. You wouldn't need to put an ANZAC roundel on here and here, and then a UK roundel on this one and this one. You could just say, okay, I got an extra $10. That means these guys are getting 5, these guys are getting 3, and these guys are getting 2. You know, so it could change every turn. It could be all 10 to 1 on the next turn. So that's when you're collecting your income. Just remember that every once in a while, while it's not your turn, go around the board and check. Make sure you've got all of your bonuses. Make sure that you're counting up all of them, the amount, because nobody else is going to tell you for you, right? You're gonna have to police your own income and make sure. And if you think that somebody else is collecting too much money, then go on and look at theirs while it's not your turn. While you've got the time to do it, go around and see what are they up, what are they down, you know, and take a look at their bonuses and see maybe they are collecting 5 too much over there. You know, you can go around and you can point that out to them. But just remember to check every once in a while. So that is collecting your income. So then that's the end of your turn. And you put your money in the bank. And then the end of the round. So that's when everybody's finished their turn. So the Americans and the nationalist Chinese are the last to go, right? Once the last player has moved, and that'd be the US player, and collected their income, it is the end of the round. Move the calendar marker along the track located at the top of the IPP tracking chart to the next round. So that's this thing here. Round 1 is over. Americans have finished their turn. So we move along to here. And it's important that you do that because different things happen every turn, right? Like let's just take a look at one of these cards here. This is the neutrals, right? So like look at here. In January 1939, add 1 infantry. So you know, like once we hit this spot here, then Polish get one infantry there, right? Here, January 1941, add 1 infantry in Norway. Like they have these things where you're adding stuff, right? So you have to remember to move the marker along, and then when you do move the marker along, as soon as you move the marker along, somebody should go through all of these, or you could have them. I've seen where you can get charts that people made up. I think the guy that made these charts up here has a chart that has all the neutrals on it, and Ray Carcass might also have one. The guy that made up that chart straight across there, that has a chart that says, okay, 1941, these guys get this, these guys get that. You know, so you don't have to check all 4 of these cards on both sides. You can just check the 1 card. Anyway, so remember to do that as well at the end of your turn, at the beginning of the next turn, and then everybody can do it, or one person can do it. You can designate. So that is how you take a turn. I know it's been a long time since we started this, but that is how you take a turn. And I've only got a couple videos left in the how-to series. I hope I didn't make too many mistakes. I know I made a few. People have pointed them out. It might be helpful when you watch one of my videos on how to read the comments below, because some people will comment, oh, you made a mistake here or something like that, and then I'll check it out or whatever, and I might I might say, oh, you're right, thanks for pointing that out or whatever. But it's helpful to do that in any of my videos on the how-to, because I'm not an expert at this game yet. And sometimes when you make one small mistake, it's not worth, you know, like redoing a 45-minute video, right? Anyway, that's it for this phase. I will move on to the next thing in, I don't know when. I got to work today, so it won't be today. So take care, everyone. General Hand Grenade out.